In a forgotten European town where the sun never fully rises, Seraphine Devereux returns to her ancestral manor after her father's mysterious death. The villagers whisper about a man who visits her estate each full moon, pale as bone, clothed in 19th century velvet, eyes like old embers. He calls himself Thorn and claims her bloodline is bound to his curse. As Seraphine delves deeper into her family's legacy, she discovers their wealth was built on an old pact. One Devereux every generation must belong to him, body, mind, and soul. But Seraphine is no ordinary sacrifice. She burns too, with fury, desire, and a darkness all her own, beneath crimson vows. When Ivy agrees to a whirlwind marriage with enigmatic billionaire Alaric Vale, she doesn't realize his sprawling Gothic estate holds a deadly secret. Every wife in the Vale family vanishes before their first anniversary. Bound by a contract, she can't escape and seduced by a husband who is both protector and predator. Ivy must decide whether to run or risk falling for a man who might love her to death. The ceremony. The sky bled crimson the day Ivy Halley married Alaric Vale. Clouds churned above the Gothic cathedral, casting long, brooding shadows across the cold stone steps. Ivy's dress trailed behind her like spilled moonlight, delicate and trembling. She didn't know half the people in the pews. Alaric had arranged everything, down to the last white rose that lined the aisle. She barely knew him either. A month ago, she was a struggling florist in a dying corner of the city. Now, she was Mrs. Vale, wife to a man whispered about in scandal and sealed in mystery. He stood waiting for her at the altar, tall, dark, impossibly still. His eyes were ice and fire, and his smile never quite reached them. "You look ethereal," he murmured as she reached him. Ivy offered a nervous smile. "Thank you." The priest's voice echoed like thunder through the empty spaces of the church. As the vows were spoken, Ivy felt a chill slip down her spine, as if some ancient thing stirred in the shadows, watching, approving. "Till death do us part," Alaric said, his voice a soft blade. Then Ivy, unaware of the curse that clung to his bloodline, repeated the words that would seal her fate. They kissed, and the sky outside turned darker still. Chapter 2. The Manor. The Vale estate loomed like a mausoleum carved into the cliffs, stone and shadow wrapped in ivy and mist. The car wound up the long drive in silence. Ivy sat beside Alaric, her fingers curled around the edge of her seat, her eyes tracing the windows of the manor. None were lit. "You'll get used to the quiet," Alaric said, not looking at her. "It's beautiful," she said, though she wasn't sure that was the word. It felt expectant. Inside, the house groaned with age. Chandeliers flickered to life one by one, casting gold against velvet and ancient portraits. A grand staircase twisted upward into the dark. A maid appeared gaunt with downcast eyes and took Ivy's bags. "The master's suite is ready." Alaric's hand rested on Ivy's back as he led her through the house. "You may explore, but avoid the west wing. It's under restoration," the warning nestled into Ivy's thoughts, sharp as thorns. That night, in the lavish bedroom she now shared with a man she barely knew, Ivy dreamed of a woman in a blood-stained wedding gown, standing in the West Wing's hallway, mouthing something Ivy couldn't hear. When she woke, her feet were cold, and the bedroom door stood open. A white rose petal lay on the floor, and she had locked the door before bed. Chapter 3. The whispering wing Ivy couldn't shake the dream. The woman's mouth had moved with desperation, the silence around her heavy with sorrow. All day, the image haunted her. During breakfast, Alaric was unusually quiet. He toyed with his tea but barely drank. "You look pale," he said finally. "I didn't sleep well." He met her gaze. "Stay out of the West Wing, Ivy. Some doors shouldn't be opened." After he disappeared into his study, Ivy wandered the halls. The portraits seemed to follow her, their eyes too lifelike. She paused near a set of double doors, dusty, locked, but warm to the touch. That night, the whispering started. Soft at first, like a woman's breath in her ear, then a knock. Gentle, measured, from inside the wall. She pressed her ear to the headboard. Ivy ... help me ... She bolted upright. The voice was real. And it came from the west wing. The next morning, she found another rose petal. This time, it was red. It lay on her pillow, and Alaric swore he hadn't placed it there. But the maid wouldn't meet her eyes. And the mirror above the fireplace reflected a woman in a torn wedding gown standing just behind Ivy. Only Ivy was alone in the room. Compelled by something beyond curiosity, Ivy returned to the locked doors the next evening. The west wing seemed to hum softly behind the barrier, like a living thing held in restraint. She traced her fingers over the ancient wood, and the door creaked open. Dust exploded in the air as Ivy stepped through. The hallway beyond was lined with portraits. Women in wedding gowns, each painted in vivid detail, each face disturbingly familiar. Ivy stopped in front of one that made her blood run cold. The woman had her eyes, her mouth, but her expression was wrong, desperate, pleading. A brass plate below read, Isolde Vale, 1834. She turned to leave, but the door had vanished. In its place stood a man in old-fashioned clothing, his face gaunt and pale. Alaric, but not. You shouldn't be here, he said, voice hollow. She remembers now, and she never lets them go. From the portraits, the eyes began to weep blood. And from deeper in the hall, Ivy heard the whisper again, louder this time. Run, but her feet wouldn't move. Chapter 5. The red bride. Ivy's pulse thundered in her ears as the hallway darkened. The portraits seemed to lean toward her, their eyes bleeding crimson tears, mouths twitching as if about to scream. She turned to flee, but the hall stretched endlessly. No doors, no windows, only faces of brides long forgotten. Then a flicker of movement. At the end of the hall stood a woman in red. Not just a red gown, blood-red silk that clung to her like a second skin, soaking the floor beneath her. Her veil was torn lace, and beneath it, Ivy could see her own face staring back, hollow-eyed, lips curling into a cruel smile. I am what you become, the red bride whispered. He marries us, feeds on us. And when we remember, a door burst open behind her.